Have you ever felt that prickle on the back of your neck? That sense of eyes watching you, even when you're alone? Tonight's true scary story dives into that primal fear, a terrifying encounter on a deserted highway that will make you think twice about every late-night drive. Get ready to be chilled to the bone, because this is the gas station stalker. If you love true horror narrations that keep you up at night, be sure to subscribe for more. The highway stretched ahead, black ribbon under a moonless sky. It was late, well past midnight, and the kind of late where the world feels thinner, more permeable to things unseen. I was hours into my drive, a solo trek across state lines to visit my sister. It should have been a simple drive, a straight shot on well-maintained interstates, but a last-minute detour for a scenic route had led me onto these desolate back roads, where gas stations were, whispers of light. Miles apart and cell service was a forgotten luxury. I was starting to feel the familiar ache of highway hypnosis, the hum of the tires, a constant drone against the quiet of the car. My eyelids felt heavy, and the coffee I'd chugged down hours ago was a distant memory. Gas stop, I muttered to myself, more to break the silence than anything else. A quick search on my phone, blessedly, a single bar flickered to life, showed a gas station about 20 miles ahead. Last chance for civilization, the GPS cheerfully chirped, in its unnervingly optimistic voice. 20 miles on these roads felt like 50. The trees crowded in on either side, their branches skeletal fingers reaching across the asphalt. The only light came from my headlights, cutting twin tunnels through the darkness, and the occasional reflective sign that flashed past like a momentary hallucination. A deer darted across the road, eyes glowing in the headlights, and I gripped the wheel a little tighter, a prickle of unease running down my spine. It was just the isolation, I told myself. Just fatigue. Nothing to be nervous about. Then, finally, a beacon in the black. The flickering neon sign of a gas station, a lonely island of light in the vast ocean of night. Miller's last stop, the sign declared, in faded letters, with an arrow pointing down a short access road. Relief washed over me. Gas, coffee, maybe a bathroom break. Exactly what I needed. I pulled off the highway and onto the access road, the gravel crunching under my tires. The gas station was small, almost quaint, a single squat building with two pumps islanded in front. A single harshly bright floodlight illuminated the pumps and the immediate area, casting long, stark shadows that danced with the wind. The rest was swallowed by the surrounding woods, thick and impenetrable. As I pulled up to a pump, I noticed another car already there, an older, dark sedan, parked at the far pump, angled slightly, away from the building. A man was standing beside it, filling his tank. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark jeans and a heavy, dark jacket, even though it wasn't particularly cold. His back was to me, and his head was slightly bowed, as if he was intently watching the gas pump display. I parked at the pump, opposite his, the squeak of my brakes echoing in the stillness. The air was cool and carried the faint scent of pine and gasoline. I turned off the engine, the sudden silence, amplifying the low hum of the gas pumps and the distant whisper of wind in the trees. Getting out of the car, I stretched, trying to work out the kinks from hours of driving. As I walked towards the pump panel, I glanced over at the man. He was still facing away, completely still, as if frozen in place. It was a little odd, but I shrugged it off. People are strange, especially late at night. I swiped my card, selected my fuel grade, and started filling my tank. The mechanical whir of the pump, a temporary intrusion into the silence. While the gas pumped, I decided to stretch my legs a bit. I walked towards the front of my car, glancing towards the gas station building. It looked closed. The windows were dark, and the door was firmly shut. Huh, I murmured. Last stop for gas, but not for anything else, I guess. It was a little disappointing. I'd been hoping for a lukewarm cup of gas station coffee. but not a major issue. Gas was the priority. Then I noticed the man again. He was still standing by his car, still facing away from me, still completely motionless. It was starting to feel unsettling. I glanced around, suddenly aware of how isolated we were. Just the two of us, in the middle of nowhere, late at night, surrounded by dense woods. My earlier unease returned, a little stronger this time. I finished fueling, replaced the nozzle, and went to get back in my car. As I walked past the front of his sedan, I finally got a glimpse of the man's face. Just a quick, fleeting glance, but it was enough to make my stomach clench. His face was pale, almost unnaturally so, and his eyes were fixed straight ahead, unblinking, staring into the darkness beyond the gas station lights. He didn't seem to notice me at all, didn't even twitch. It was like he was in a trance, or not quite there. A shiver ran down my spine. I hurried back to my car, unlocked the door, and slid inside, locking it immediately behind me. My heart was starting to beat a little faster now, a nervous flutter in my chest. Okay, just get out of here, I told myself, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Just fill up and go. I started the engine, the rumble of the car a sudden, welcome sound. I put the car in drive and started to pull away from the pump, glancing one more time at the man in my rearview mirror. He was still standing there, motionless, facing away from me. Except, was he? As I moved, I could have sworn his head slowly, deliberately turned in my direction. Just a fraction of an inch, almost imperceptible, but enough to make my blood run cold. I didn't wait to see more. I accelerated out of the gas station, tires spitting gravel, and back onto the access road, heading for the highway. I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, my eyes glued to the dark sedan at the other pump. For a moment, nothing. Just the empty gas station receding behind me, swallowed by the darkness. Relief started to ease the knot in my stomach. See, just being paranoid, I chided myself. He's just some weird guy getting gas. Relax. Then, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Bright, unwavering headlights rapidly closing the distance. My heart lurched. Too fast. Way too fast for someone just leaving a gas station. I glanced at my speedometer. I was already going over the speed limit. The headlights were still gaining. Adrenaline surged through me. It couldn't be, could it? No, just someone else leaving the gas station, probably heading in the same direction. Coincidence. It had to be. I tried to tell myself that, but the ice I dread in my gut was screaming otherwise. I pressed down harder on the accelerator, the engine whining in protest. The speedometer crept higher. The headlights in my mirror remained relentless, unwavering, like eyes boring into the back of my skull. I risked another glance. It was the same dark sedan, the same distinctive shape. No mistaking it. He was following me. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through my earlier unease. This wasn't just a coincidence. This wasn't just my imagination. This was real. I was being followed on a deserted highway in the middle of nowhere in the dead of night by a man who had stared into the darkness with blank, unblinking eyes. My breath hitched in my throat. Panic started to claw at the edges of my composure. Okay, think, I told myself, my voice trembling slightly. Think, what do I do? My phone, cell service, worth a try. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I glanced at the signal indicator, still nothing. No bars, no service, completely cut off. The thought sent another jolt of fear through me. My eyes darted back to the rearview mirror. He was closer now, much closer. I could make out more details of his car in my headlights, the faded paint, the slightly dented fender. And behind the wheel, a dark shape, indistinct, but undeniably there. I sped up again, pushing the car harder, the tires protesting with a high-pitched whine as I took a curve too fast. The world outside became a blur of trees and darkness, punctuated by the relentless headlights in my mirror. He was still there. Still following. No matter how fast I went, he matched my speed, a silent, persistent shadow on my tail. My mind raced, desperately searching for options. Outrun him? Impossible. My little sedan wasn't built for high-speed chases, and he seemed determined, relentless. Pull over? Absolutely not. Confront him? Suicidal. There was no one else out here. No houses, no towns, just endless woods and this empty highway. I was completely alone, except for him. Tears pricked at my eyes, blurring my vision. I blinked them back, forcing myself to focus. "Don't panic," I whispered, though my voice was barely audible above the roar of the engine and the pounding of my heart. "Don't panic. Just keep driving. Just keep moving." I drove like a woman possessed, my foot pressed to the floor, the speedometer needle climbing higher and higher. The wind howled past my windows, and the engine screamed in protest. But still, in my rearview mirror, those headlights remained always there, always, closer than they should be. A constant reminder that I was not alone, that I was being pursued, that something terrible was about to happen. Up ahead, through the trees, I saw a flicker of light. Not headlights this time, but a stationary light, a warm, yellowish glow. A house? A building? Anything. Hope flared again, desperate and fragile. I steered towards the light, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and desperate anticipation. As I got closer, the light resolved itself into another gas station, another lonely island of light in the darkness, almost identical to the one I had just left. "No," I gasped aloud, slamming my fist against the steering wheel in frustration. It couldn't be. It was a cruel joke, a trap. But then, as I got closer still, I saw something different. Parked in front of this gas station, not just one car, but several. A couple of pickup trucks, a minivan, even a police car, its blue and red lights flashing weakly in the distance. People. Other people. Not just me and him. Relief, so overwhelming it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. Civilization. Help. Safety. Maybe. I didn't hesitate. I swerved into the gas station parking lot, pulling up quickly beside the police car, my engine still racing. I threw the car into park, yanked off my seatbelt, and stumbled out, my legs shaky and weak. I didn't even look behind me to see if he was still following. I didn't care. I just ran blindly, desperately towards the gas station building, towards the lights, towards the sounds of voices, towards the promise of safety, whatever safety I could find. I burst through the door of the gas station, gasped for breath, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside it was brightly lit and surprisingly crowded. A few truckers in booths, nursing coffees. A couple of teenagers huddled around a video game. A woman behind the counter ringing up a customer. Normal people, ordinary life. A world away from the terror of the highway. I leaned against the counter, trying to catch my breath, my body trembling. The woman behind the counter looked up, her eyebrows raised in concern. "You all right, hon?" she asked, her voice kind. I could barely speak. "Followed," I gasped, the word catching in my throat. "Car? Following me." Confusion flickered across her face, then concern deepened. "Followed? What do you mean?" I tried to explain, the words tumbling out in a rush, disjointed and panicked. "Gas station, back there. Man following me, highway." She frowned, trying to make sense of my frantic words. Then her eyes widened slightly as she seemed to understand. "You think someone was following you?" I nodded, my breath still coming in ragged gasps. "Yes, I'm sure he was right behind me." She sighed, a long, weary sigh that seemed to carry the weight of unspoken knowledge. She glanced around the gas station, then back at me, her eyes now filled with a kind of grim understanding. "Well," she said quietly, her voice dropping to a low murmur, "you came to the right place. Stay here a while. Have some coffee. You're safe now." Safe? Was I? I looked back towards the door, my eyes darting nervously towards the parking lot outside. The police car was still there, its lights pulsing reassuringly. The other cars were parked normally, people moving in and out, oblivious to the terror I had just escaped. It looked normal, safe. But even surrounded by people, by light, by the mundane normalcy of a late-night gas station, the cold dread lingered. The image of the man's pale face and unblinking eyes, the relentless headlights in my rearview mirror, the feeling of being hunted on that dark, empty highway, it was all still vivid, still real, burned into my memory. I stayed at that gas station for a long time, hours maybe, until the first hint of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. The woman behind the counter, whose name I learned was Martha, was incredibly kind. She gave me coffee, let me use the phone to call my sister. Cell service magically reappeared here, a small miracle, and listened patiently as I recounted my terrifying experience, her expression growing graver with each detail. The police officer, a young, weary-looking man, took my statement, his pen scratching on his notepad. He listened, nodded, asked a few questions, but his eyes held a familiar, almost dismissive look. "Probably just someone heading in the same direction, ma'am," he said, his tone polite but unconvinced. "Out here on Route 19, late at night, you get all kinds." I knew he didn't believe me. I could hear it in his voice, see it in his eyes. Just a woman alone on the road, spooked by the darkness and her own, another late-night highway story, easily dismissed, easily forgotten. But I knew what I had seen. I knew what I had felt. The cold, deliberate pursuit, the chilling stillness of the man's gaze, the overwhelming sense of dread. It was all too real to be just my imagination. And even now, years later, as I recount this story, sitting in the safety of my own home, miles and miles away from that desolate highway and that lonely gas station, I still feel that prickle of fear, that cold knot of unease in my stomach. Because sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't creatures of myth or legend. Sometimes they are just ordinary people driving dark sedans on empty highways with something cold and unreadable in their eyes. And sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true, the ones that could happen to anyone, anywhere, on any ordinary night, when you find yourself alone on a dark road and realize you are being watched and followed. And there is no escape. After a story like that, you can't help but look over your shoulder, can you? What part of the gas station stalker resonated with you the most? Was it the isolation, the unblinking gaze, or the relentless pursuit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love reading your interpretations. And if you're brave enough for more true horror narrations, make sure you're subscribed to Narratistories so you don't miss the next chilling tale.